Howdy, it's Ari with Land Insights, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to identify markets for InfoLots. So normally, what you might see me recommend is that we go over to our My Markets after we've vetted some counties, maybe some zip codes, and we do another type of analysis there, maybe prioritization, maybe we look at other data points, or maybe we just keep it as a tracker and we say, hey, we're marketing county-wide, maybe zip code-wide, and that's that. But when you're looking for infill lots, it's not necessarily something that uh, we want to analyze once they're in our My Markets, and that's because generally when we're looking at county-wide data, we're not looking at infills, or infills are hard to categorize county-wide. And so really what we want to do is look at a very zoomed in data set to identify those infill lot opportunities. What does that look like? Well, we do want to use as much data on the heat map as possible. This is probably the one time where I personally recommend using the entire United States, because what we want is to validate volume. Usually when we're looking for infill lots, yes, we're looking for size, but in order to understand where there is a ton of infill lots moving, we need to see where there's a ton of infill lots that have sold. And so what I would personally recommend first is adjusting some of the filter and the data set that we're looking filters and the data set that we're looking at. Okay, so I'm going to change our acreage range to a smaller band of data. I'm going to say 1 to 2 acres in this instance, although there can be a case to be made that 2 to 5 acres could be a rural infill lot, which usually is on the outskirts of a city, or there is also a case to be made that less than 1 acre is also an infill lot. So you can use the acreage ranges that we have for those options as well. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my heat map to see the most amount of volume in the past year. So I'm looking at the most amount of sold comps. And the goal here is to start finding those areas where most of the properties that I want to find, right, those infill lots, are selling. Now you'll see that there are certain areas of yellow that are heat mapped here, but this really isn't going to do us much good, because once we start looking deeper and deeper, we're looking at individual counties. That's really not going to help us if we're trying to lock down the exact areas where these infill lots are selling. So I'm actually going to do one more thing, and I'm going to move over to the zip code level. And now that the zip codes have loaded, you'll notice there is a lot of opportunity here. Now, this is United States wide right now. All the zip code data is appearing, and so you'll notice all of the places that have a lot of 1 to 2 acre properties that are selling in volume. This is a great way to start hunting for those infill lots. But how do you capitalize? How do you find the actual places that you want to target? Well, the first thing that you want to do is come down here to the table, the market data table, and you just want to do really what you would do with any data set. You want to start refining it. In terms of active properties, maybe we want to see a minimum, and maybe we can get an idea of that minimum by coming through this data set and finding all the counties that seem to have, well, at least more than 4 or 5 active properties. And if I want to cut myself off at 5, I can do a filter of 5 or greater. Maybe in this case, what I'll do is 10 or greater. From here, you'll start to notice a lot has been shaved off. Hundreds of data points have been shaved off. And so at this point, you'll notice I have a lot better of a table down here to look at. I can also start stacking some other filters. Maybe I can sort by those counties that have the most or least amount of comps in the past year. I'm actually going to remove all of these counties that have 0 comps in the past year. I might even go so far as to remove anything that's got less than 10. And that's only going to continue to refine our search. From here, we're looking at those areas that have a ton of comps in the acreage range we're looking for. Now, there are some other ranges. Don't forget about that. So you have some other opportunities here. But what is nice in this opportunity to find infill lots is that you're really guiding yourself to places that, and that's only going to continue to refine our search here. This just opens up the opportunity to look for markets with subdivisions or infill lot opportunities in them. So this is a good example. You can tell that as I zoomed in here, It's clear that I found a subdivision, one that does not look fully built out, or maybe at least has larger 1 to 2 acre properties in it. And so this may be an opportunity to market to 1 to 2 acres in this particular zip code 38574, and find an opportunity that works for me that maybe I can pawn off to a builder or a retail buyer. Now, one thing that I would also consider is, even though we're looking at zip codes and we're looking for info lots, it still doesn't change every concept of refining this search. I would still want to know that there's a strong sell-through rate in these markets, and I'm still going to want to do an analysis on that zip code to that extent. The one difference with subdivisions that's a little different than zip code wide analysis, or maybe county-wide analysis, or even an acreage range analysis, is that subdivisions kind of act as their own little market at times. And there are realtors out there who are very much experts in these small subdivisions, who have done multiple sales in these subdivisions. So I would do a couple things in prepping for this type of marketing. I would find a partner who's familiar with the subdivision in particular, that has marketed here, or in the subdivision you're mailing to, or the area you're trying to find InfoLots in. And then secondly, I would cross-reference with something like Redfin or Zillow comp data, just to get an idea of that subdivision, how well it perks, if there's any other issues, and then maybe even look zip code wide for that comp data, because there may be other areas in that zip code that are also performing well, despite not being a part of a subdivision per se, but having a small lot, on the outskirts of a small town or city, that happen to be an acre or 2 acres that a builder can come in and build on. So that's just one perspective here. I'm sure there are ways that you can interpret this data a little bit differently, but this is really what I would recommend doing in order to identify where there are infill lots in certain markets. Usually I'm never going to be hopping out of the zip code, because this is a great way to refine your search and find hubs of sold comps in the acreage ranges that you're looking for these info lots. If you have any questions on this, you're more than welcome to reach out to us at hello@landinsights.co, or you can reach out to us on the bottom right corner of your platform.